Oh boy, okay. Should be live. I'm gonna just wait 30 seconds. I generally wait 30 seconds. Hmm. Okay. I need to shave. I really need to shave. Hello. Um, New video, I guess. Yeah, got a new video. Gonna do a bit more drawing. Let's go. Oh, oh, okay. So, I think I mentioned this in the last video, but work has been really intense for me. Really, really intense. Oh, I just realized I've got my stream stuff here. Let's move that over here. Okay. Um, yeah, so work's been so intense, and it's probably not the worst work week of my life, but it's up there, you know. Basically, long story short, there's a thing that my group, my team, when I say my team, I'm not the leader of the team, but I'm one of the members of the team. That team's been working on for about almost a year, and they went ahead and pretty much just went, "We're going to scrap this," which doesn't mean that we didn't learn anything from it. Now that I had a talk with my boss, they mentioned like, "Look, it doesn't mean we didn't learn anything from it, and we're still going to use this stuff in the future." But yeah, we're going to scrap this project, and it just felt heart crushing to me for that project to be over. It's actually so bad that I'm considering changing job to something else that I would feel happier in, more comfortable in, all of that stuff. I I'm very upset. I've literally cried because of it. Um and I just want to move on. I just want to move on. So I got this week off. It means that I can have more time to do this stuff now. I've been working, I've done little bits here and there for this, but I don't think I've made much progress. Oh, I forgot that that is going to pass through. Sure that doesn't pass through. If we get to the 40, 44, 6? Jesus Christ. Okay, we're not going to get all that done today. I think I'll be happy if we get to the 40-second mark. 40-second. Yeah, the 40-second mark. Yeah. If I get to there, that'll be good. That's how many drawings? One. Oh, it'll be 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 16, 20 pictures. Okay, 20 pictures. If we do 20 pictures today, that will be pretty good progress. Yeah, so I've been burnt out to do this at all. I've just not felt like doing this. Um, and even today, I don't really feel like doing this. In fact, I've done nothing today. I've went to the gym, uh, went to the shops 3 times. So I went once to get Lucasade, once again to get bottled water, and then I realized I didn't get everything that I wanted, and I went back in and I got milk and popcorn kernels. Um, I'm probably gonna have a hot chocolate later. Might even have it today. Um, sorry, this is a very, very slow video. Um, yeah, so I've been doing that. What I really need to do, and I keep cycling through all the things that I need to do. I need to do my writing for everything. I need to do my meditation. I need to meditate. I haven't meditated in days and days. I need to just sort everything out. I need to got the suit to do. I got a passport to send off. So much to do and not enough time to do everything. That being said, I'm going to Italy in November, so that's pretty cool. Um, yeah, I don't know. I'm going to be watching this Destiny stream while we go. So, yeah.
It's the This all started from a little thing called the Stop the Steal Facebook group. It grew to 365,000 in just 20.
Should say as well that if this Destiny stream gets boring, I might change the video to something else. But generally, Destiny streams aren't terrible.
2 hours completely organically. We were
those 2 words.
Growing by 1,000 people every 10 seconds before Facebook shut us down, and 2.1 million people were waiting in queue.
I'm going to be sloppy.
We've all seen the big tech censorship. We've all seen the attacks from the left, whether it's the Democrats that think they have power, know what's best for us and our families. And you know what? We have a fighter in the White House who stood.
This is the sister of the girl you accurately called a Tide Pods eater? Wait, actually?
Up for we the people.
Or are you just making random shit up?
We are so grateful for President Donald J. Trump. He's been fighting for us for the last 4 years, and we're here to stand up and fight for him. I am so honored for the coalition of partners that helped put together this truly historic event right here in the White House lawn. And I want to thank each and every one of you for being here today. And we have a truly amazing...
Just want to say you were a huge influence to me becoming interested in educated politics. Keep up the good work, man. Thanks, buddy.
List of speakers that are coming up. And I just want you all to remember to keep the faith. Do not lose hope. And we are all going to stand strong together for President Trump and for our nation. God bless you all, and God bless America.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Pastor Paula White for today's prayer. Hey.
Okay.
Good
Let's move this along a bit.
This is the day the Lord had made. Come on, Washington. We will rejoice and be glad in it. Give God a shout of praise.
Give God a shout of praise.
Can you explain the difference in projecting your voice and just yelling? This lady needs some work. I mean, like, if you ask like a vocalist, they can tell you more. There's a difference between like talking into your head versus talking into your chest. And I think this is how it's like explained. I did like a level 1 vocal class because you had to for a fucking performance major. So I only remember what I learned there.
Is Trump?
A Bill of Rights.
No. I'll say he's fat enough, but he's not.
So that's why I'm kind of saying too.
Okay. Go here somewhere. Janice confronts Destiny on close stuff. Okay. Who else can we?
Okay,
Lena
the
Box got
depositions of
anything
Caroline
good?
Wren, a Trump fundraiser closely associated with the 2021 Capitol. Oh, okay.
I mean, don't watch Lona Box, but Fox News liberal triggers MAGA co-host with fact check. Visibly nervous Trump dodges Fox News about debating Kamala. Okay, let's watch
Convicted
this.
felon Donald Trump recently sat down for a softball interview with Fox propagandist Maria Bartiromo, in which he yet again waffled about whether he would debate Vice President Kamala Harris and demonstrated that he was in total denial about the disastrous state of the 2024 election and his campaign. But before we unpack all that, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. All right, friends, we have several clips to talk about in this video. So again, Trump sits down for a softball interview with Maria Bartiromo. They talk about a wide array of topics, and we're probably going to do a video about a separate topic later on. But I want to focus on this one, in which, again, Trump yet again waffles about whether or not he would debate the vice president and demonstrates a total denial about the current state of the race. We're going to play the clips.
Don't judge me, guys.
And I'm not a fan of Biden. He's not a smart guy. Never was. You can go back 30 years. He was never a smart guy. But she's not smart either. She's not a smart person.
Are you going to debate her?
Well, I want to. We're leading in the polls, it seems, by quite a bit still. She's better than he is, but I think ultimately she'll be worse than him. She's more radical than him. He was.
So again, Trump won't commit to demonstrates a and we're probably going to do a video about a separate topic later on. But I want to focus on this one, in which, again, Trump yet again waffles about whether or not he would debate the vice president and demonstrates a total denial about the current state of the race. We're going to play the clips and unpack them together.
And I'm not a fan of Biden. He's not a smart guy. Never was. You can go back 30 years. He was never a smart guy. But she's not smart either. She's not a smart person.
Are you going to debate her?
Well, I want to. We're leading in the polls, it seems, by quite a bit still. She's better than he is, but I think ultimately she'll be worse than him. She's more radical than him. He was.
I don't know what he's saying there. Like, I got so confused. So he's saying, well, I want to debate her. You know, I think she's better than Biden, but I think she'll actually be worse. It's like, why are you like saying double standards of what? Why is everything that you say like a double of the exact same thing? It's like, oh yeah, I want to. You know, I think she'll be better than him, but I don't. Actually, is he saying that thinks that she'll debate better, but that he is worse? That she is worse overall as a prime minister choice? Not prime minister, sorry, president choice.
Are you going to debate her?
Well, I want to. We're leading in the polls, it seems, by quite a bit still. She's better than he is, but I think ultimately she'll be worse than him. She's more radical than him.
He's more radical than him. That might be true. I don't really know. The problem is I don't really know what her policy is. I mean, I assume it's basically we're Biden, because really, I assume that Biden chose Kamala because they have similar views. But I don't know if she's more radical. It's hard to say. Does that look good? This looks good enough.
So again, Trump won't commit to debating her. He says, I want to. Well, then, Donald, it's pretty simple. You actually had a second debate lined up with President Biden in September on ABC, which you agreed to before either of you, Trump or Biden, were the nominees, the confirmed nominees. Trump is the confirmed nominee for the Republican Party. Vice President Harris is the presumptive nominee for the Democratic Party. There's no reason for you to, shirk this obligation that you committed to, this agreement that you committed to. The vice president says she will be there in September on the stage at ABC, and it's up to you whether or not you show up. It's all there. All the arrangements have been made. So if you really want to debate the vice president, it's right there for you. What else is there to talk about? Now, what's interesting, of course, is, when he instantly segues into the lie, and we will get to that lie because it is a blatant, egregious lie, that I'm leading by a lot in the polls. That was his excuse for not debating Governor Ron DeSantis or Chris Christie or Doug Burgum or Vivek Ramaswamy or Nikki Haley during the Republican primary. The thought process was, well, I'm so far ahead of them, I have no need politically to do it. And to be fair, politically speaking, that was true. He did. He was so far ahead of them, there was no need. Donald Trump is actually a terrible debater. He can't speak to substance. He can't answer questions directly. All he knows how to do is to insult. As a matter of fact, to the extent that people think that he won the most recent presidential debate against Vice President Biden, I would argue neither of them won it. They both performed terribly, but at least Biden engaged with the substance of the question and lied less than Trump. Trump is a terrible debater, and against somebody like the vice president, he will almost certainly lose. He has no excuse to appeal to polling now because
I don't know if I agree with this idea that Trump is a bad debater. Now, it depends on what we're talking about when we say bad debater, because slide back real quick. Make sure, yeah, I can see the chat. So when it comes to debate, part of debate is the insulting. At least in the real world, I know that like we could talk about debates when it comes to what's his face. We can talk about debates. I'm sorry, my brain is gone. I think we can talk about debates when it comes to the actual substance of debates, right? So there's like people arguing about the actual facts and the cases of the argument, right? So, for example, if it's abortion, then you might be arguing about how should you be allowed to kill a baby on the kill the baby to abort the fetus at the third trimester, and people who are pro-life will say, well, no, because it's a baby in there, and then people who are pro-choice would say yes, you are allowed because I don't know which trimester is which, but there's like a point in which consciousness starts to develop, and that's where I put the line. I think it's about 20 weeks or somewhere around there. And I would say that that's the point when you should do it. And that's probably what they would argue, right? So, assuming that's before the third trimester, they would say, like, yeah, it's okay to do it at any point before the third trimester. You know, that's kind of the argument that you could have. The other way you can argue, though, is to attack someone's credibility or attack someone's thing. And is it bad debating? I guess you could say it's a bad debater tactic, but if it works, then it doesn't really matter whether or not you can call it a bad debate tactic, but if it works, then it doesn't really matter. So you can, for example, someone says, for me, I'm struggling to even make a coherent sentences right now. I'm Bidening right now, right? And you could make fun of that fact. You can make fun of the fact that they're not really delivering the point coherently. They don't sound coherent. They don't sound suitable to run for president. That's the one that they always did for Biden. Biden's too old. He stutters. He mumbles and bumbles too much to be considered a serious debater. And that's, if you make that comment and they're like, well, why are you talking about this? We're meant to be talking about the abortion stuff. It doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, Trump is delivering the points that he wants to put through. Because at the end of the day, who cares about the abortion thing when you center it back onto what Trump's really good at doing, it seems, is that he's really good at getting people to kind of seep down to his level. And I think that everyone enjoys watching him debate in that way. I think people enjoy the insulting. It makes it more exciting, makes it more fun. And I think people... I think that Trump exploits the fears and worries of people. So in the case of Biden, the fact is he's been running the country for 4 years. He's not a great talker, but he seems to be at least decent enough at running the country. I mean, he's good enough that he managed to, under his administration, managed to put through, what was it? It was the biggest infrastructure bill in US history. He's managed to put through some of the, some not anti-gun, what's the right term? Some gun regulation. For the first time in 30 years, he's managed to end certain wars in Afghanistan. I know that the pullout from Afghanistan was a bit rough, but the fact is that was a war that people really hated, and he ended that war. You can give him credit for bringing back the economy into shape after everything that happened. He did this all, by the way, while having a completely split party, right? So the Congress and the Senate are pretty much split in half between Republicans and Democrats. So Biden's done pretty well given his circumstances and given his age in delivering uh, honestly some of the best legislation that America's had in a very, very long time. And just as a comparison, Trump really hasn't done all that much. He's done a lot culturally, you could argue. You know, there's been a lot of cultural stuff, but I don't think you needed to be president for that kind of stuff to be a thing. I would also argue that the cultural things he's done isn't really that interesting. And when I say cultural stuff, I'm really talking about people's opinion on democracy, people's opinion on the institutions. He's brought a lot of distrust into those institutions, and whether or not you think that's bad or not, there's nothing wrong with skepticism of these institutions. But I think Trump's brought it to an extreme where, you know, these people, it almost doesn't make sense for them to vote, right? Like if he was at least rational, it wouldn't make sense to vote because why would you trust the institutions? I mean, in the case of 2020, people claim that the election was stolen from them. So why would you bother voting again? Why would you bother voting again knowing that it's a rigged election? And I think that might actually bite Trump in the ass to some extent. I think a lot of people might actually make that rational conclusion and go, yeah, why would we vote? It doesn't make sense. I rambled on a bit there because I'm also drawing at the same time, and I'm trying to learn how to talk about these political topics, I guess. Yeah, let's just go back to the video and I'll center it back.
Because the polling between him and the vice president is actually quite tight because he's lying about the polls. Again, we'll get into it. But I want to play one more clip, again, in which Maria Bartiromo tries to bring it back to debating the vice president.
On the debate, she's taunting you now. She's saying he doesn't want to debate me. Say it to my face, President Trump. You know, that's what she said the other night.
Look, she's a third-rate candidate. She failed in her attempt to, against many other candidates. You know, she was the first one to drop out. She never made Iowa. And that was when you had a normal press. Now you have a...
Well, why not debate her now? Again, if she's a third-rate candidate, if she's so easy to beat, just go in there and beat her, right? I mean, this is, listen, you know, again, before we get into debunking the lies that Trump just made about the current state of the election, I should tell you, I mean, I feel more confident about the race than I did prior to President Biden dropping out, but I don't think this is in the bag. I think it's entirely possible that we lose. Donald Trump won the 2016 presidential election against Hillary Clinton. You can say what you want about Hillary Clinton, but she was an experienced stateswoman. She was an experienced politician, and she was more popular than Trump. People want to talk about how unpopular Hillary Clinton was, but she beat him by 3 million votes in the popular vote. She was even more popular than Donald Trump, but he still won by way of the Electoral College, which of course is affirmative action for Republican politicians because of course they can't win the presidency on their own merits. So if he won in 2016, it's entirely possible he wins in 2024. I don't think any of us should count it out. I don't think any of us should get complacent or arrogant. But if I'm thinking to myself, you know, if I really believed that Trump was so effortless to defeat, then you know, I would be making different decisions than what Trump is making right now against the vice president, even though he thinks that she's so effortless to defeat. Well, it doesn't actually align with your actions, Donald, right? You won't commit to debating her. And the polls contradict the things that you say. Your visible nervousness about these things contradict. They belie. They speak of an insecurity. And the truth is, he has every reason to be insecure. So we're going to look at some things. The Economist, the Kamala Harris effect on the polls has been dramatic. The latest surveys point to a tightening race. And of course, it's paywalled. I forgot to
Oh, wait.
log in. But there's Newsweek as well. Kamala Harris now leads Donald Trump in 7.
Okay. So with Biden dropping out, I actually really like Biden, for the record. I think Biden is actually a good president. I think he's one of the top presidents out there. Very experienced individual. Sure, he was old, and you can say that comes into question a whole bunch of different topics on, you know, if you're like 80 years old, what are the chances that you, if you're 80 years old, it doesn't really help your chances in being relatable to the average person, right? The average person wouldn't look at an 80-year-old and think, oh, yeah, that's the kind of person that I would want running. Um, Especially, of course, like a fairly rich, fairly wealthy, white 80-year-old. It doesn't work for, especially young people. Um, but it kind of gets worse. It kind of gets worse when Biden also kind of has shown signs of getting older, old age kind of stuff, almost dementia-like features. I don't know if he is confirmed having dementia. I don't know if he's got any diagnosis for it. It wouldn't surprise me if he got one in the next 5 years. It wouldn't. I don't think it would surprise anyone, frankly. Um, Even during the 2020 election, there was lots of questions of his age. Uh, so, of course, it makes sense that he dropped out and has Kamala Harris taken their place. Now, I thought Kamala Harris was the one who kept making fun of Trump for having the snow woman, the snow woman joke where I think that was, what was her name? I wonder how your hair would fare in a blizzard. It's that woman. Is it Clopager? Cloud Boot Jar? Something like that. I can't remember. Um, but no, she's the one who says, I'm burdened by what has been, or something like that. As far as I know, she's a bit, let's say, traditional. She's very politician-y. She's a prosecutor, as far as I remember. So great for someone to go against Trump. But I don't know if she has the pizzazz. But then the funny thing is that she's almost 60, but she can kind of pose herself as a young woman, even though she's not really that young at all. She's, I mean, I wouldn't say she's old for a president. I'd say she's probably a fairly average age for a president, um, but still not young. I still wouldn't call her young, but that is how she can pose herself in this race. I don't really know what her main aims or policies are as well, and I think that right now we're experiencing a lot of people saying this is a honeymoon phase, and I think it is. I think that America has a long way to go before they can before they can bounce back. It's not gonna be easy, and I think it is right now. I would put the chances of Trump winning. I'd say it's honestly like 50-50. I really do think it is just 50-50. Um, it could be that uh, the chances are that Trump will appeal his court decision, and that's going to bite him, even though we all know that he's going to have charges and whatnot, but he's got to have those charges. So those charges are probably going to bite him a bit, and then Kamala can work off of that. And a lot of these things are like, if you have like a bunch of small things that get you, you end up getting fucked at the end. So in the case of Biden, there was just more and more comments that showed how old he was, the tripping over, the people talking about like falling over the bike, the debate performance, and then getting ill from COVID, and people saying, well, there's concerns about his age, and how he could still probably die from this illness, even though he's got vaccines because he's so old. Um, yeah, it just doesn't look. It just didn't look good for Biden. But Kamala can turn it around. It's a 50-50 right now. I really do think it's about a 50-50. So the momentum might come back for the momentum might come around for Kamala in the early days, and assuming that this debate, if the debate does go through, that'll be great. I think it's going to be quite hard for Trump to resist it, but he might do. So that might add some more momentum as well, knowing that Trump backed out of a debate. But ultimately, what that debate is in September, right? So September, October, and then November. In 2 months, that steam can roll slowly. So Kamala needs to. She's got the momentum, but it really is going to be about her keeping up that momentum all the way up to the election. And for Trump, I don't know what Trump would need to do if he actually wanted to win. He'd need to reassure people that he isn't going to absolutely destroy democracy. I guess that's really his best chance, but I don't know.
National polls. Kamala Harris is now leading her opponent Donald Trump in 7 national polls. The new polls show the presumptive Democratic nominee is leading the former president by between 1 and 4 points. The vice president has her largest lead in a poll conducted by Civics between July 27th and July 30th. Harris is ahead of the Republican presidential nominee in 3 points by a poll by Ledger conducted between July 26th and July 28th. When third-party candidates were included in the poll, Harris's lead grew over Trump grew to 7 points. Okay. Harris had a smaller lead of 2 points over Trump in 4 other national polls. These include a poll conducted by The Economist and YouGov, where the vice president polled at 46%, a lead within the poll's 3% margin of error. Other polls were conducted by Redfield and Wilton Strategies, Angus Reid, and Florida Atlantic University, and showed Harris leading by 2 points. Again, many of these within the margin of error, not all, but many, which is why I say it's not in the bag. It's entirely possible for the vice president to lose this particular election. But the momentum is on her side. And even in swing states, as Bloomberg reports, the vice president is leading Donald Trump or wipes out his lead in swing states, which are the states, unfortunately, whether you like it or not, but because of the Electoral College, which is affirmative action for Republican politicians, these are the states which electorally matter most. Well, according to Morning Consult, Bloomberg News, very reputable pollsters, Harris is currently leading Trump in swing states. And in terms of election betting odds, which a lot of people like predict it and others, a lot of people put a lot of stock in because these are what people are willing to actually put money on, oftentimes substantial money. She is leading now Donald Trump in the election betting odds. So the polls, election betting odds, fundraising. In her first week, she fundraised $200 million. I mean, it's an extraordinary sum. Not coming from...
I've been joining the wrong fucking one. That's what I get for making backups. Okay, that's fine. We haven't necessarily lost progress. If anything, we've gained progress. I knew I was doing something stupid. Okay. 1, 2, so we've got 3 there. But I actually said my goal was to get to the 42nd second. Let's get to the 43rd, I guess. Yeah, let's get to the 43rd, and then haven't necessarily lost progress. Okay. I knew I was doing something stupid.
But coming from small-time donors, 66%
actually
were not just small grassroots donors; they were first-time donors. 66%, decisive majority. The volunteers, 190,000 volunteers, new volunteers signing up to help her campaign. The celebrity endorsements which are coming, Megan Thee Stallion and others. I would be stunned if Taylor Swift did not eventually come out and publicly endorse the vice president. Listen, Trump has his own advantages, right? Again, he benefits from the asymmetry of expectation. He benefits from a favorable media ecosystem, which is critical as they may seem about Trump. They are inclined to grade him on a curve. They are inclined to use very sanitized headlines and language to describe the terrible things he's said and done. He benefits from the fact that usually elections are referenda on the incumbent. In this case, it would be Vice President Harris because she's part of the Biden-Harris administration. She's the second in command. So he has his own advantages. He also has the right-wing propaganda machine. He also has billionaires like Elon Musk and Peter Thiel and David Sachs and others. I mean, Trump is a viable, dangerous candidate. But right now, it is, let's be very clear about this, he has lost the momentum. Even after his assassination attempt, he could barely crack 40% approval rating, and her approval rating is higher than his, according to most polls, and her potential is even higher. Donald Trump is effectively maxed out. The only question is whether or not the vice president can rebuild the anti-Trump coalition and maximize her own potential. If she does, she wins, but that has not been done yet, and the election is 3 months away. But I love the visible denial and waffling that Trump is in on the Fox Propaganda Network, and I don't think it does him any favors whatsoever. Let me know what you think in the comments.
Okay, I want to do another one of these. Well, fuck it, we might as well watch a Destiny.
After a series of disastrous Supreme Court rulings, including the granting of sweeping presidential immunity, President Biden has finally, formally, and publicly proposed major reforms to the Supreme Court. And on a Piers Morgan panel of all places, Morgan himself seemed skeptical about the composition of the court and Republicans' defense of it, and his guest, liberal streamer Destiny, shredded the two conservative guests on the panel about the Supreme Court and about presidential immunity, and it was all glorious. But before we unpack all that, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. All right, friends, we have several clips to talk about in this video, and they are all from a recent Piers Morgan panel. We'll start with this one. I was actually kind of surprised. It was a welcome sight to see this allegedly nonpartisan journalist, who so happens 99 times out of 100 to align publicly with Trump and the Republicans, actually call out his Republican guests for their hypocrisy and the imbalanced nature of the Supreme Court.
The problem looking at it from the outside is that when you have, as Donald Trump found in his last term of office, the ability to pack the court with three of your own in one term, it does lead to an imbalance which you would be crying foul about if it was the other way around. What is the answer to that?
So he's speaking there to his right-wing guest, Officer Tatum, and he's on there with the redheaded libertarian, or the libertarian redhead, one of the two, and they are engaging with Destiny about the Supreme Court and about presidential immunity, specifically the redheaded libertarian. And so Destiny speaks up in defense of the Supreme Court reforms that President Biden has proposed, which includes, number one, a constitutional amendment, which would make it very clear that no president, liberal, conservative, Democrat, or Republican, is above the law, and that they can be criminally prosecuted if they commit crimes while in office. That's one proposal. The second proposal is term limits, which would effectively rotate Supreme Court justices off the bench after 18 years of service and effectively grant every president, liberal, conservative, Democrat, Republican, two presidential nominees. And then the third reform endorsed by the president are a binding enforceable code of ethics, code of conduct, which would basically mirror what's already there in Congress. For Congress, the legislative branch. For members of Congress, they cannot accept gifts valued at $50 because the Congress wants to reduce corruption. They don't want to make it easy so that you can bribe Congress people or things like that. If you try to give a congressman something over $51 in value, they can't accept it. They want to impose, President Biden wants to impose those ethics requirements on the Supreme Court and make it enforceable. I think all of these ideas are good. I think there are even other ideas.
Yeah, that's an incredible idea. That's actually a pretty cool idea, yeah. But I'm surprised that isn't already a thing. In my workplace, there's rules to... I don't know if this is standard for other places, but there's rules to say, like, you can't just give your boss a gift without at least logging it in a... It's like a little thing that you have to log to give your boss a gift, because you don't want to be in a situation where you can bribe your boss with luxurious things in an effort to get yourself more money or get yourself a promotion. Yeah, it makes total sense that this is a thing. I don't know why that isn't already a thing in government. That's so weird. Oh, there's a fly on my screen. Big fly as well.
That's the context, and this is Destiny's defense of them to the conservative guests on Piers Morgan.
Yeah, so firstly, the idea that if you're a Democratic president and you get to nominate and have a Democratic Supreme Court justice, that's an interesting concept in theory. But I seem to remember that Obama had spent almost a year with a vacancy on the Supreme Court that McConnell explicitly said he was going to deny a hearing for, which was insane. The Democrats were robbed of a Supreme Court seating there, and who's to say if Republicans would ever seat a Supreme Court justice? Maybe next time it'll be 2 years before an election, and they're saying, well, maybe we should wait for the next election cycle. You have to keep in mind that when the court was created, the reason why there are lifetime appointments is because justices, Supreme Court justices, are supposed to be insulated from the political pressures relating to running again for office and all of the other things that go into having to keep in mind like an election season. However, all of that, as Cenk rightly pointed out, is completely destroyed if you are taking bribes or getting paid or getting some kind of compensation based perhaps on the way that you might rule in the court. So an ethics guideline, I don't know how anybody could be opposed to that. And the nice thing about term limits are people focus on term limits as like term limiting a person, which is fine, whatever. The nice thing about term limits isn't necessarily the term limit. It's that you could apportion so that every single president gets either 1 or 1.5 picks, depending upon what you actually put that term limit as, which I think everybody would agree would probably be fair. If every president was guaranteed the same number of Supreme Court picks, it means that the composition of the Supreme Court would roughly align with how Americans are voting for president, rather than this idea that, hey, maybe you'll get really lucky in one president. You know, if Trump were to win again, if Sotomayor were to, God forbid, die or step down, maybe Trump, one president, gets 4 Supreme Court picks, which is insane.
All great points, great defense. I'll say, as somebody who knows Destiny, I'm proud of him for doing this because he was very resistant for the longest time to any changes to the United States Supreme Court. So he seems more open to that. I think it's good. No institution is perfect. Institutions should not outlive their usefulness. And if they need to be changed or reformed or modified or scrapped entirely, as we've done with various institutions over the years, then so be it. We always need a court of last resort, and we'll get into my thoughts on the court at the end. But we always need a court of last resort. But this court has become too powerful and too rogue and too corrupt. If you are granted lifetime positions and you are effectively 9 philosopher kings, which get to impose your views on the American people by way of imposing your views on the Congress and the president, then you should have to be perfect. I'm sorry, you should have higher ethics. You should be held to a higher standard of ethics than even the president of the United States, because at least we can vote the president out every 4 years, and they're term limited to 2 terms, period, 8 years total. So there are more electoral public accountability controls on even the president than there are the Supreme Court justice. But obviously the Supreme Court's not living up to that standard. So yes, there should of course be an enforceable, ruthless code of conduct.
I don't know how I feel about, well, I don't know. I have nothing really to say because it's, at the end of the day, it's up to America to make these standards. But I don't really know how I'd feel about, I find the idea of having a Supreme Court where you can the idea of having a Supreme Court where a president gets to choose every 1.5 picks. 1.5? Is that what you said? Let's just say you get 2 picks per president, right? Every term, the president gets to pick one Supreme Court. Does that mean that I feel like that's going to end up going biased towards one side, right? If, let's say, the Democrats win 3 times, not 3 times in a row, but let's say they win, well, let's say they win 4 times in a row, that means the Supreme Court, and it wouldn't be that hard to win 4 times in a row, right? When I say it's not that hard, what I mean is it's not going to be uncommon for someone to win 4 times in a row. But it's not unrealistic that at some point the president wins and then the incumbent wins, the Democrats win and then the incumbent wins, and then another Democrat wins and then that incumbent wins. That's going to be biasing the Supreme Court so much to the Democrat side in that case, right? I mean, it's essentially the problem that we have the Republicans now. The Republicans have, what is it, like 6 Supreme Court people that they've put in there, 2 or 3 of which have been from Trump. Yeah, it's insane. It's actually insane. The Supreme Court, though, holds a lot of power. I mean, they've effectively, within one presidency, been able to take away abortion rights. And I get that they put it in as well, but that was too much power in the first place. They shouldn't. It was insane that America's whole abortion policy was basically reliant on a court case. That shouldn't have been the case, right? That isn't a power that makes any sense. But then they also put it through that the president is essentially immune from all crime, for as long as it's an official act, which basically means anything they do while they're president is an official act. They can get away with anything. It's just insane. It's insane to me.
Such that their conduct is unimpeachable. And if they're going to behave like politicians, then they should have political controls forced on them, like term limits, like elections, like codes of ethics, like et cetera and so forth. It's you either need to pick one. If you want all the perks of being...
By the way, this is Pondering Politics. I don't know. I just thought I'd mention that.
Being a judge, then you have to hold up your end of the social contract and act like a judge. You don't get to be partisan. You don't even get to hint at partisanship if you want to do that. If you want to wave MAGA flags, if you want to openly show your political affiliation, then go be a politician, go be a senator, go be a congressman, go be a president. Otherwise, you don't have the right to do that. And if you're going to flout that right, I do believe that the American people have a right to impose checks on you and to bring you to heel. As a reminder, the founding fathers did not intend for the Supreme Court of the United States to be equal to the Congress or the president, let alone more powerful. This idea that we have three co-equal branches is just not true. We have three separate branches, which are powerful and important, all of them. But the Supreme Court was clearly intended by the founding fathers to be the weakest and the least active of the branches, and that includes weaker than the president. So anyway, great job by Destiny in that respect as well. And then he has a back and forth with the libertarian redhead over presidential immunity when she tries to insinuate that actually presidential immunity is a good thing.
Also, it'd be unconstitutional to punish a president for performing his enumerated and implied powers. And SCOTUS, when they had said that they weren't going to criminalize this, SCOTUS had asked the lower courts to determine that scope, but no one's really talking about that part. It was SCOTUS had sent it back to the lower courts. They didn't just rule on it blindly.
That is completely and totally not true. This is misrepresented by conservatives so much. Okay, so there were 4 different actions that the court spoke about. Roberts ruled one of them is qualifying for absolute immunity. This first bucket of things that he's created, by the way, none of these things have existed historically. There are other things now. All of the other acts are presumed immune, meaning that the state or the government in this case has to bring a reason why they should be able to probe these actions in a way that will never damage the executive's ability to operate in the future, which encompasses all of the other actions that are spoken about in the Supreme Court case. The reason why they remanded some of that to the lower court was for the lower courts to now have that argument over the presumptive immunity. Criminal immunity has never existed in any size, shape, or form for any politician in this country in the history of the United States. And the idea that a U.S. president, that we came from a rebellion against a king, that our president is now criminally immune for performing his duties, why would we ever assume that he needs that type of immunity?
That's not true.
It's true.
When was the president immune for criminal immunity?
There's a process for
I don't even know. Wait, when was the president immune from criminal immunity? What?
There's a process for when a president commits a crime, and that process is outlined in Article 1.
I'm sorry,
to impeach
what
him.
is that process?
Look.
Wait, hold on. No. Impeachment has nothing to do with criminal liability.
So when a president,
with all due respect, you have no idea what the structure of our government is. I'm so sorry. Okay, impeachment is a political process that you use to unseat somebody, and once they're unseated, you can prevent them from holding future office. If you listen to Benjamin Franklin, for instance, talk about impeachment, impeachment was created so that you didn't have to either assassinate or fabricate criminal charges to remove somebody from office. Impeachment has nothing to do with criminal liability. The maximum conviction sentence you can get for being impeached is just being removed from office and prevented from taking seat in future office.
He's correct. So the fact of the matter is we have never understood, constitutional scholars, historians have never understood impeachment to be a prerequisite. There's this idea that's now being peddled by an increasingly vocal minority in the Trump-aligned fringe that no, you actually have to impeach a president successfully.
I'm actually interested in doing one of these drawings at some point. like drawing a keyframe from one to the other, and then just uh drawing the in-betweens, like in free flow, and seeing how accurate I can draw an in-between. Of something that's realistic like this. Because I assume if you have the in-betweens as a reference, the keyframes as a reference, it's probably, well, it probably is still incredibly hard, but I don't know. Something to think about. Phone keeps going off. Hmm.
To impeach them in the House, convict them with 2/3 supermajority in the Senate, and then once they are successfully impeached and convicted, then you may prosecute them. That has never been understood to be the case for the president or any other executive officer. As a matter of fact, the language of the Constitution makes it very clear that if you impeach somebody for an impeachable offense is treason, bribery, or other high crimes and misdemeanors. Let's say bribery, right? That's an impeachable offense. It's also a crime, right? You can be criminally prosecuted for bribery as well if you're a public official, right? So it's an impeachable offense and separately a criminal violation. You can impeach an elected official for bribery and remove them from office. But the Constitution says if you do that, you can also prosecute them for bribery too. But the impeachment has never been required first. That has never been the understanding of it. There is no history to support that throughout the United States of America. As a matter of fact, when President Ford pardoned former President Richard Nixon, Nixon had neither been impeached nor convicted in the Senate, but he was pardoned anyway because both Ford and Nixon and everyone involved understood that Nixon was still prosecutable, even though he'd never been impeached or convicted. So this person's just simply wrong, and Destiny is just absolutely correct. Also, again, going back to the presidential immunity thing, I think it's super gross and weird and pathetic, and certainly un-American for anyone to defend criminal immunity for really anybody, but for the president of the United States as well. Piers Morgan has flirted with it in the past. He's expressed support with it. He doesn't in this episode, thank God. Actually, part of me kind of hoped that he did, so he and Destiny could go back and forth on it. Piers Morgan is British. Piers Morgan is actually a monarchist, so he's not a Republican. He supports the monarchy. And listen, whatever. If you want to be ruled by a sovereign monarch, so be it. But we rebelled from a sovereign monarch. We rebelled from King George III. That was the Revolutionary War. And one of, if not the single most important thoughts of the Constitutional Convention when the Constitution was drafted and ratified, there were many important beliefs, there were many important principles, but probably the single most important one is we weren't going to have a king. The president is merely chief executive.
I think this whole animation's just going to stay black and white. Or it's going to be something a lot simpler. I cannot have this animation in color. I can't be bothered. It's taken so long just to get it in normal. I just want to move on. I'm not saying I'm not enjoying this. I'm just saying I want to do something else after this, you know? I wasn't intending this to be an hour-long not an hour, a full-time project. I've still got to do fixes on the parts at the beginning. And I've still got to do the audio. Fuck me, there's so much to do. I don't actually know how much I've done now. I've just been doing random drawings around the area, but without sticking to any one. I should have just rushed it. I should have just rushed on this. I feel like smarter anyway.
And
Enjoy this
temporary
video.
that because they have to be elected and they're subject to re-elections. They don't get to serve for life. There's no divine right of kings. The sovereign, the king, King Charles in the United Kingdom, Queen Elizabeth's son, who is now the reigning sovereign, he's above the law. He cannot be prosecuted. He cannot be charged. He is truly the embodiment of, he could shoot someone on Fifth Avenue, and under current British law, you can't prosecute, because in British law, the sovereign is the crown, and the crown is the source of law. That's why if you're prosecuted in the United Kingdom, they refer to it as the crown. Whereas here, we say the government is charging you, or the district attorney's office, and the crown is prosecuting you. And the idea is the crown can't prosecute itself. We don't have that, folks. We shouldn't have that. We shouldn't want that. We're Americans. We have a president, someone with whom we invest temporarily enormous power and privilege, and we also have accountability of them. They have to be reelected. We can investigate them. And if they commit crimes while in office, when they leave office, we can prosecute. That has always been the understanding. The fact that people have elected not to do that could mean a couple of things. Number one, they didn't think the case could be made. Number two, perhaps the president in question didn't actually commit a crime. Number three, perhaps there was some inappropriate loyalty to the office of the president, but it was always an option on the table to prosecute a criminal rogue president. And the Supreme Court of the United States just disregarded it entirely, purely to benefit Donald Trump. It's gross. As someone who's a Democrat, I don't want any Democrat president, not President Clinton, not President Obama, not President Biden, and not, hopefully, future President Harris. I don't want my side to have it. You shouldn't want your side to have it either. None of us should want anybody to have it. It's really gross and weird and pathetic that so many Republicans really crave a sovereign God king cult leader. It's really gross and un-American. It should be made fun of relentlessly. So good on Destiny for showing up. Good on Destiny for pushing back. And he's currently, I think, literally as we speak, engaging in a back and forth Twitter meme war with this person who, for some reason, believes she won the debate. She didn't. Let me know what you think in the comments.
Let's see if Destiny's actually good now.
General and Senator Paxton.
It feels so weird that I haven't done any writing today. For the first time I haven't done any writing in over a year.
General or Attorney General?
Like, I at least do some writing in a day. I will do later on today, to be honest. It's just, it feels weird.
Okay, whatever. Did they say that?
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome General Paxton.
Do people refer to the Attorney General as General sometimes? Is that normal?
Accompanied by Senator Paxton.
It is so awesome to be here. I want you to know that Texas fights. We fought.
There's a Kamala clip about this? Okay. Weird.
12 straight lawsuits related to mail-in ballots, related to signature verification, federal court, state court, Travis County, Austin, Houston. We fought. We won every single one of those cases. And because of that, Donald Trump won Texas by over 600,000 votes. And thank God for a legislature in Texas like my senator, Angela Paxton, my wife, who put in place laws that protect against fraud. One of the great things about the state of Texas is that we did not quit. If you look at what Georgia did, they capitulated, they consented. We kept fighting in Texas. And then we had the opportunity to go fight in other states. And we sued 4 states over the ballot fraud and not following the Constitution, not following state law. And we took it directly to the Supreme Court, and they should have heard our case.
We took it directly to the Supreme Court. Yeah, I mean, that... I'm sorry, okay? Saying that you took it directly to the Supreme Court is like saying, I shot him with a gun with bullets. Yeah, of course. When one state sues another state, the only court that can hear that is the Supreme Court. It automatically goes to the Supreme Court. You didn't go directly. That's where it has to go. That's like, yeah, you did, but like that's the procedure. That's the only thing that can happen.
1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
We took it directly to the Supreme Court, and they should have heard our case. And let me just finish up by saying that what we have in President Trump is a fighter. And I think that's why we're all here. We believe in what he's accomplished over the last 4 years.
True.
And because we're here today, the message goes on. We will not quit fighting.
Oh.
We're Texans. We're Texans.
We're at the hour mark. Okay.
God bless you for being here today. God bless this great country we live in. Thank you.
We're fighting here today, Lieutenant.
what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna fill in this.
Is that 3 minutes? Why, if your wife is the Attorney General of the state Attorney General, why wouldn't you let her speak at all? The fuck? That's an I feel like that's... I can't generalize because I don't know states as well. I feel like being, like, intuitively, I feel like being a state Attorney General, would that be a more or less prestigious position than being a state senator? Wasn't she the senator? Oh, he's the Attorney General. Okay, never mind. That makes more sense. My bad. Okay, I mixed them up. I wonder, would you consider the AG, like in the federal Attorney General, to be a more prestigious position than just a senator? I feel like it's a more prestigious position, except senators tend to serve for longer, which might make being a senator a more prestigious position, just because you can serve longer, maybe. But even at that, I'm not sure. Attorney General.
I need to stop watching this. I don't know what to watch though. I'll watch nothing. Let's watch this Dr. K video.
If I'm internally content, why the hell am I here? It's because I have all of these karmas to complete.
But there was a really good Dr. K video I was meaning to watch. Thinkers versus doers. Thing is, I feel like I do things though. So... Oh, actually, no. Actually,
so
I do want to do
see what idea of extrinsic motivation and intrinsic motivation. Some of us are prompted to action by our circumstances. If we have a deadline, if we have a test to study for...
Oh no, I already watched this. Yeah, I'm sorry. My brain's everywhere. Let's go here.
And then as you complete those things, you'll be free. So help. Meditation is turning me stoic. I've been doing some meditation the past 3 to 4 years, and now I've discovered Dr. K. I've started doing it even more often. However, what I realized is that in the safe space of my existence, where there's only my I and no turbulence, I'm so comfortable that I never want to leave, and it feels like the only real thing to my existence. For example, yesterday night, I was laying in bed thinking what tattoo I want to get next, and then it struck me that the I on the inside does not really care about tattoos. The I doesn't really care about anything. It just exists. So if I tune into that, the more I feel like all my wants are completely erased. But then what's the point of living? Just to sit with that emotion of not wanting anything until I rot away? How do I practice meditation without feeling like things in my material world stop mattering? Or is this enlightenment? Realizing nothing matters and I can just sit there in my head and meditate until I pass away. But if so, why do monks and such keep on living? What do I do when I easily can tap into the I safe space of myself? Live? Because I don't really feel like there's any motivation to anything. Editing in one of my replies in the comments here, I do get a boost from creating, working on self-development, or helping others. However, I feel like all these things classify as material. It's not my inner I that gets a kick. It's my ego that likes feeling good about itself. My inner self just observes. It feels like it doesn't really care about these things. I'm also...
I mean, is there anything wrong with getting a kick from doing good in the world? Real quick. Okay. We'll do the rest. We'll do the rest of this.
At a happy and stable point in life, so I wouldn't say that I'm using meditation as a form of escapism. Okay. Fantastic post. So, sometimes when people start meditating, it starts working. What does that mean? So let's run through a couple of relevant details here. So the person is sitting in bed, thinking about what tattoo they want next.
I think I'm going to actually stop streaming here, but I'm going to finish off this thing. I feel like I'm not going to say much while I'm watching this video. But I am going to finish this part of the drawing off, so that's this part. The me on the back bit. as it goes on to the 55th. Yeah, about just a little past the 54th second. And we're good. So I can just go with that.